Welcome to Ifa Stories, where ancient wisdom meets modern storytelling. Step into the sacred tradition of Ifa, rooted in Yoruba land and shaped through centuries of interaction with neighboring West African cultures and preserved in the Lukumi tradition of the diaspora. Here we engage the Ifa divination corpus, the sacred Odù through which Orúnmìlà reveals insight into destiny and moral order, reflected in the lives of Orisha, Irunmole, Awos, communities, and all who seek guidance. These are not distant myths, but living teachings, bridges between past and present, illuminating responsibility, consequence, and the human path. Honor the wisdom. Reflect on destiny. Journey with us into the heart of Ifa. Subscribe and let the stories speak. Learn more at ifastories.com. Introductory note. This retelling draws on a traditional account as presented in Ifism, the complete work of Orúnmìlà, by Mr. C. Osamaro Ibie. The narration and commentary in this presentation are original to Ifa Stories. Cinematic narrative of Ifa Stories. Story title: The First Earthly Works of Ejiogbe. Before the first great works of Ejiogbe were openly known among the people, destiny was already moving quietly around him. Before miracle, there was placement. Before public manifestation, there was the place into which he had to be brought. At that time, heaven and earth were not cut off from one another. They met in Ejiogbe, the only market that existed then, where exchange was not limited to goods alone, but also included skill, art, technology, and divination. In that world, sacred knowledge already belonged to public life, and it was into that world that Ejiogbe was brought. Though he had already done many mysterious things while growing up, the first major public phase of his works had not yet unfolded. Then, at the age of 15, his mother took him to Ejiogbe. That journey was not ordinary movement. It marked the beginning of his entry into the public arena where later acts would take place. It was the crossing from hidden promise into visible action, the quiet beginning of a destiny that was about to be revealed. But before they even reached the market, the work of the journey had already begun. On the road, Ejiogbe met a woman and stopped her. He told her that she had a problem. Before she could begin to explain herself, he told her not to speak, because he already knew the matter better than she did. Then he told her plainly what she was carrying. She had been pregnant for 3 years, yet the pregnancy had not developed. This was no guess and no accident. It was revelation. Ejiogbe instructed her to make sacrifice with 16 snails, 1 hen, 1 pigeon, 5 laughing kola nuts, and honey. He also instructed her to use a he-goat, akara, and echo to make sacrifice to Eshu. The woman brought the required materials, and the sacrifice was performed. After this, Ejiogbe told her that her problem had come to an end. Yet he did not allow the matter to end with immediate relief alone. He instructed her that after she had delivered safely, she must bring a small boa to offer thanksgiving to Orúnmìlà. The serpent was called Oka in Yoruba and Arumotan in Bini. She was to add a snail and whatever else she could afford. In this way, the story made clear that blessing received through sacrifice must be completed through gratitude. What had begun as hidden affliction had now passed into sacred correction. But correction still required thanksgiving if it was to be made complete. Then Ejiogbe continued on his way. The next person he met was a cripple called Aro. Ejiogbe told him that he had a problem, but Aro replied that he had no problem and that it was Ejiogbe who had one. After this, Ejiogbe met a blind man and asked him whether he had a problem. The blind man also replied that he had no problem at all. So both men stood inside the same condition. Their suffering was real, but both denied it. Ejiogbe then brought out his uroke and pointed it at Aro's hands and legs. At once, Aro rose and began to walk. In that moment, Aro understood that he was not dealing with an ordinary boy, but with a priest. He knelt down to thank Ejiogbe for curing the deformity with which he had been born. Then Ejiogbe stretched out his uroke toward the blind man's eyes, and immediately the man regained his sight. He was filled with joy. In both cases, the uroke stood at the center of the intervention, but once again, Ejiogbe did not leave the matter at the level of wonder alone. After healing Aro, he instructed him to go and serve Orúnmìlà. He warned him not to conceal his problems in the future, because one does not know when God will answer prayer. And he said further that if a person concealed an ailment, that ailment would bury the sufferer in the ground. He gave instruction to the blind man also, telling him to become a follower of Orúnmìlà so that his difficulties with mankind would be reduced. He also told him that when he got home, he should serve his head with a cock. Thus, the intervention did not end in bodily change alone. It moved into service, warning, obedience, and alignment. After these things, Ejiogbe finally reached the market. And this is what seals the story with dignity. He had performed these miracles without asking the beneficiaries for any reward. The healings were not treated as trade. What remained was restoration, warning, and the ordering of life after help had been received. Seen together, these events are not scattered wonders, but one continuous teaching. First, the destined figure is brought into the proper field of manifestation. Then hidden suffering is revealed. Then sacrifice is prescribed with exactness. Then relief is given under sacred order. Then thanksgiving is required so that blessing may be completed. Then denial is confronted. Then healing is followed by service, warning, and obedience. This is the law the story leaves behind. Sacred power does not reveal itself only by changing visible conditions. It reveals itself by placing life back into right order. A hidden burden must be truthfully faced. A correction received through sacrifice must be answered with gratitude. A healed life must not return to concealment, but must be brought into alignment with divine instruction. That is how the first earthly works of Ejiogbe began.